too, because I don't all crappy and one's brand new.
Yeah.
Okay, I'd like to call the planning commission meeting to order at 6:36 p.m. Has this meeting been publicly noticed?
It has.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed roll call. So,
President Rosick?
Yes.
Trustee Carpenter? Stan Wickman?
Here.
Sangeeta Patel? Leah Blankenship? Tim Hansman? Therese Klein?
Here.
Barbara Kylie Miller? Here. Eric Kudo?
we will move on to the approval of the June 25th meeting minutes. Do you have any discussion regarding the minutes? Yes.
I have some tiny changes I'll just give to Crystal afterwards, but 3 things that were worth mentioning. On page 2, in the 4th paragraph down, in the 6th line, where it says the recommendations, who's responsible for the implementations, and a lot list staff. I would delete the next word, thinking, and then add a comma, leading one to think, then a larger staff would be needed. And again, I'll give you this
Okay.
afterwards.
Yeah.
On the next page, on page 3, the 3rd full paragraph, that last line, I wasn't quite sure what that meant, so I thought maybe there was something missing. Where it said, Mr. Kudo added that if plans are being combined, he would like to make sure they are being reviewed and the percentage to goals are being met accordingly. I wasn't sure what that percentage to goals are being met.
That was just how he phrased it. I
Yeah.
think he meant like wanting to make sure like the initiatives or whatever, what the last parts of those were being reviewed and things were getting accomplished. But that's just kind of how he phrased it, so I just kind of typed it as how he phrased it.
Yeah, that just wasn't clear to me. And then on page 6, the 6 full paragraph about the one Airbnb residence that could sleep 18 people. I wanted to change this because I think I know what I said, where it said our property for rent slept 18 individuals and she didn't want 18 strangers staying next to her. I think what I said, and it should be changed, that she didn't think anyone would want 18 strangers staying next to them.
Okay.
But that's it. And then, as I said, there's just some, little typos. I'll just give you this
Sure.
afterwards.
I just had one question, which I think might be just a formatting issue on the PDF, but, because it looks like there's a couple of letters that are
Yes,
missing.
there was things on some of the memos and Bart and I did it a million times and because like you were in the numbers. Yep, all the B's are missing for some reason.
Okay, I thought it was just.
So it might be a matter of me printing them and scanning them in to get them into the system, because whatever we did it like 3 or 4 different times and it kept dropping all the B's.
That's fine.
And I see it now, it did to my minutes, we
Yeah.
noticed it on his memos first.
Good times.
So I'll move to approve with those changes.
I'll second.
All those in favor of approving the meeting minutes with changes, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, so we will be moving on to the public hearing, conditional use application to obtain established license for commercial property at 2521 East Capitol Drive, business owner Downer Mobile LLC.
Thank you, Trustee Carpenter. I can read the project overview for the benefit of the audience who does not have the packet in front of them. Bear with me if it's going to be kind of monotonous. But so as part of the village's commercial occupancy renewal program, which is required every 5 years, a site inspection was performed at Lakeshore Mobile Site, 2521 East Capitol Drive in February. That inspection noted the presence of exterior storage, which was ordered to be removed from the site. The applicant has been attempting to do so, but has informed the village that a salvage dealer license from the State Department of Transportation would be required to enable the business to remove certain materials to a salvage business themselves. Section A of the application requires that the village board confirm that a local permit has been obtained and issued to operate a salvage operation. Accordingly, a conditional use permit to obtain a salvage license has been submitted. Per Village Code 535-10B, any use not specifically listed as either permitted or prohibited shall be considered to be a conditional use if the Plan Commission determines that the use is substantially similar to a permitted use or an existing conditional use allowed in that district. If a proposed use in the B1 through B4 district is determined not to be substantially similar to a permitted use or an existing conditional use, that use may be considered as a conditional use if the Plan Commission determines that the use is consistent with the Central District Master Plan as approved by the Village Board, as well as any other applicable laws or ordinances. If at any time the Plan Commission determines that the use is a conditional use, the provisions of Article 5 of this chapter shall govern. If the Plan Commission does not determine that the use is a conditional use, then the use is prohibited. The parcel is zoned B3 mixed-use commercial district, which allows vehicular washing and repair stations and garages as a conditional use. The parcel is approximately 15,500 square feet and is developed with a 3,063 square foot auto repair garage and convenience store. 8 fuel pumps underneath a 1,200 square foot canopy are also present along East Capitol Drive. Proposed operations. Lakeshore Mobile has applied for a salvage license so they can tow cars legally to scrap yards without being fined. Their application specifically states that they will not operate or maintain a junkyard on the site. Lakeshore Mobile has also submitted a copy of their mobile vehicle salvage dealer or recycler 2-year license application, which indicates that a Type 4 establishment will be sought. Per the application, Type 4 facilities do not include a salvage yard, but only a business office for maintenance of required motor vehicle storage records. Salvage motor vehicles are purchased from vehicle owners and transported directly to the salvage yard or scrap metal recyclers. The vehicles used for transporting salvage metals shall be parked and stored on a location that has been approved by local authorities. Per Village Code 532C1, no person owning or having custody of any partially dismantled, inoperable, wrecked, rusted, junked, discarded, or unlicensed motor vehicle or a motor vehicle with expired license plates shall leave or store such vehicle on any premise in the village. And 2, no person shall permit or allow the parking, leaving, or storing of any partially dismantled, inoperable, wrecked, rusted, junked, discarded, or unlicensed motor vehicle or a motor vehicle with expired license plates upon any premise which he owns in the village of Shorewood. Per 532G, the provisions of this section do not apply to a motor vehicle in an enclosed building or to a motor vehicle on the premise of a business enterprise operated in lawful place and manner when necessary to the operation of such business enterprise. The applicant has indicated that obtaining this license would provide the best mechanism for gaining compliance with the above requirements. Of note, the leasing of moving vans is not permitted and has not been approved at this site. The removal of those operations has been required as a condition of the occupancy renewal. Review and approval. Per Village Code 535-25, the Village Plan Commission shall review the site, existing and proposed structures, architectural plans, neighboring uses, parking areas, driveway locations, highway access, traffic generation, circulation, drainage, sewerage, and water systems, and the proposed operation. Conditions such as landscape and architectural design, type of construction, construction commencement and completion dates, sureties, lighting, fencing, planting screens, operational controls, hours of operation, improved traffic circulation, deed restrictions, highway access restrictions, increased yards or parking requirements may be required by the Village Plan Commission upon its finding that these are necessary to fulfill the purpose and intent of this chapter. Furthermore, per Village Code 535-25C, no conditional use permit shall be authorized by the Plan Commission unless such commission finds that 1. The establishment, maintenance, or operation of the conditional use will not be detrimental to or endanger the public health, safety, morals, comfort, or general welfare. 2, the conditional use will not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other property in the immediate vicinity for the purposes already permitted, nor substantially diminish or impair property values in the neighborhood. 3, the establishment of the conditional use will not impede the normal and orderly development and improvement of the surrounding property for uses permitted in the district or have a negative impact on the diversity of the type of business located in the district. 4, adequate utilities, access roads, drainage, and/or necessary facilities have been or are being provided. 5, adequate measures have been or will be taken to provide ingress and egress so designed as to minimize traffic congestion on the public streets. 6, the conditional use shall, in all other aspects, conform to the applicable regulations of the district in which it is located, except that such regulations may, in each instance, be modified by the Board of Trustees pursuant to the recommendation of the Plan Commission. And lastly, 7, the conditional use is in accordance with and subject to all other applicable laws and regulations. So that's an overview of what is being requested. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions from the Planning Commission prior to opening the public hearing or vice versa.
So they need a signature on the application for the license from us to get that.
Correct.
For?
Yes, and that application was provided in the packet. and the signature would be on page 14 of 17, section A. I did confirm with the state DOT that section 2 is required to be filled out, and section 2 specifically says that the village board shall sign that, so I do not have authority to sign it myself.
Okay.
I have a question whenever it's my turn.
Go ahead.
Mark, so it's an existing use, correct?
Correct?
And if it was a new use, then I have no problem with the existing use. But if it was, does that, by saying yes, are we setting precedent then that this type of use would be allowed in the future as a conditional use that we would approve?
Yeah, perhaps Nathan can maybe address that better.
Sure, that's a great question, and the answer is not to any greater extent than when the Plan Commission approves a conditional use for any other property. The criteria found in 535-25 sub C, those 7 criteria that Bart read as part of his introductory remarks, are to be evaluated on a case-by-case basis for each applicant, and the conditions may be different depending on the specific location of the applicant, depending on the surrounding properties, depending on the traffic on the street, depending on a whole myriad of other factors. So the fact that you grant one and do not grant another is not really precedent for future action, because each application is considered independently.
And if you don't grant this, what happens to the existing business?
They would have to pay somebody to come and tow away the vehicles that we've asked them to remove.
But they still could have the whole yard and like the repair area.
Correct, the auto repair and gas station and convenience store are already approved uses that are in operation, so that wouldn't be changing. The only change being requested is the addition of a license for this particular operation.
Yeah, I'm not sure if my questions are really for Bart or if they're for the proprietors of the business, but I'm wondering if this is a one-time thing in order to get these vehicles off the property, or is there a plan to provide this towing service as an ongoing portion of the business?
Ongoing.
Ongoing, because that's what I thought, if it's just a one-time thing, much simpler just to have,
It's
another
nothing,
third
it's
party.
nothing that we haven't done.
Yeah,
I'm not trying to open up a junkyard.
right,
I'm not trying to, I'm trying to keep bad people out of our area, picking up the scrap and the salvage, because there's many times that Shorewood Police has come because we have metal in the back and they steal it. They steal, and the more people are familiar with that you bring in, now you're bringing more bad people into the village of Shorewood that, oh, well, that house has a big TV. I'm coming back for that. And, I mean, it just goes on and on. And all I want to do is remove the existing stuff that we obtained, because the city of Milwaukee and all the laws are changing. I just can't tow anything to the scrapyard anymore because they are creating new licenses.
all right. Follow-up question here. So you have a tow truck there, so and I live just down the street.
Mhm.
So let's say I've got a flat tire, the
Mhm.
spare is bad, or the engine won't even turn over.
Mhm.
Are you currently licensed to be able to come and tow my car from my
Absolutely.
house to yours?
I do it all the time, yes
So
ma'am.
then, say you get it there,
Mhm.
it's a total loss.
Yes, ma'am.
Nothing we can do with it.
Correct.
That's when you need this license to then
Exactly.
send it off to the great beyond.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, okay.
And to add to that, they have incorporated metal now counts as the same as a vehicle. So all the scrap parts, you pull off your old brakes and they're piling it in the back. To take that to the scrapyard is considered the same as a vehicle.
So you could have that like in the back of a pickup or something, but
Yes, ma'am.
you have to be licensed to transport.
You need the
them.
license to transport it.
Okay, and then, can you estimate like how frequently and also what time of day you'd be doing this transport or towing?
Only, we've changed our hours. We close at 10 o'clock now because it's unnecessary to stay open until 11. When we took it over years ago, it was open at midnight. We're trying to keep the village safe. You can't do anything after 4 o'clock in transporting any metal or disabled or junk cars, let's per se, because they close at 3:45. So the window of that is 8:30 a.m. to 3:30. So if we're disposing any of those cars, that's when we'll ever do it. As far as towing, in the wintertime, if it's extremely bad, we can still tow 24 hours. We only have one rig, only one tow truck, and we're not looking to disrespect the neighborhood.
So as far as frequency, are you thinking once a week, a couple times a week, a few times a month?
It could be 3 times a week, it could be once a month.
Okay. And then as far as that timing, are you thinking, well, maybe not during the school rush hour drop-off time, but,
Again, that's 3 o'clock, so that'd be a foolish
right,
time to
since we're trying
dispose of
to,
the
I mean,
vehicle.
that's, you have to kind of figure out, is that going to interfere with other, traffic issues?
To get from Shorewood to even Green Bay Avenue at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, that could be a half an hour to 45 minutes.
So you'd be more likely to do it?
In a shorter window,
Okay.
If I had to really guess or plan, the ideal time is between 9 and 2 in the afternoon.
In our packet, we have a couple of photos of the station and the properties. So like the vehicles in the photos, and I don't know if you provided those or Bart took them, but I'm just wondering, are these vehicles waiting to be serviced? Do you provide parking spaces for, residents in the neighborhood? Are these some of the vehicles that are inoperable?
Some I'm waiting for parts, some are my own vehicles, and others are definitely just customers being serviced.
Okay, so getting this license, I'm just wondering how that would change the appearance of the property? Or,
All I want to do is clean it up,
yeah,
you
but
know.
some of these are just, they're waiting for their turn in the service bay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And then lastly, and this would be a question for Bart, do any of Shorewood's other service stations have a similar license?
Not that I'm aware of. I believe this is a relatively new requirement, and this is the first time it's coming to my office.
Okay, but I know there's another station near Wilson Drive that they also provide services.
They don't have a tow truck.
They don't, but I'm just saying that it's something that could come up again.
In theory, if they apply
The
for the
first one.
correct.
That's all the questions I
Can
have.
I just have you guys state your names and addresses for the record, and we probably should have done.
Martin Holmdahl, 10208 North Astor Lane, Mequon, Wisconsin.
Rick Schnocky, 121 West Highview Drive, Mequon, Wisconsin.
How do you spell your last name?
SCHNAKE.
Or let me ask, so Sherwood asked them to clean up some of this stuff. In order to clean it up, they could either hire someone or a license is required for them to do this. And all this type 4 is, again, keeping records on the premises and then having any vehicle used to transport these there. It doesn't allow them to operate a salvage yard. So we're just
Correct.
saying, hey, you now have the ability to keep your records at this place, keep your vehicle used for towing there, and then take them to the scrapyard.
Correct.
That's all we're trying to do.
Not the same for these things.
What's that?
It's not the same for these things. If I can date myself.
All right, I guess I do have another question. There was something about not being able to keep a moving van not permitted, so the U-Haul that's parked there, that's not for service, that was like a
A
rental?
lot of times we are servicing it.
Oh, you are?
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
We probably should formally open it for public comment and then at some point, so. It is a public hearing, so I don't know that we officially opened it for public comment yet.
Okay.
I just gave the introduction and we have some questions, so.
So do I, like to open the conditional use application to obtain a salvage license for the commercial property at 2521 East Capitol Drive. Open it for public comment. Do you have any public comment?
At 6:57.
Oh, sorry.
Sounds like
Seeing
none.
none? Okay,
Please close it then.
we'll close at 6:59. Okay, so then can we move forward?
Yeah, you can move forward to discussion and potential motions.
Does anybody have any other questions or any other discussion regarding this?
I'll make a motion.
Great.
I move to approve the conditional use application for a salvage license at the commercial property 2521 East Capitol Drive, based on meeting the conditions stipulated in 535-25C, subject to compliance with requirements of 500-32, and the submission of a site plan showing the location of all proposed vehicle storage on the site, including the vehicle used for transporting materials, if any.
Second.
Okay, great. Motion and a second. Further discussion? Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
So 5, okay, great. So we
We'll
will,
be in contact tomorrow.
Thank you so much.
thank you.
Thank you all.
Appreciate
Have a good
everything.
night. Okay, so we're moving right along to consideration of an amendment to the plan development district for the village municipal complex, particularly to the North Shore Fire Department located at 3936 North Murray Avenue.
I can provide a brief overview, more brief than the last one since it's not a public hearing. So in general, the current fire station is part of a planned development district along with Village Hall, the village complex, which includes the library, as well as the parking lot behind here. So all of that is within one zoning district, a planned development district. Planned development districts are great in that they provide greater flexibility for developments with multiple buildings on a site or shared parking, things like that. Where they're difficult sometimes is the administration of amendments to those, because unlike typical zoning districts, which identify height restrictions, setbacks, things like that, the planned development district is kind of guided by an approved development plan. Digging back into the records, I provided the ordinance and the resolution for the initial approval of the planned development district. That planned development district shows the fire station in its present condition. We are preparing to potentially see some amendments to that site, which would include a new south side entrance, a demolished garage, and a 417 square foot apparatus addition to the northeast corner of the building, as well as a more pedestrianized entrance between the two buildings. So the development plan that was initially approved will be modified slightly based on what was approved back in the early 2000s, I believe is the date of that. So with that, the village code does identify within 535.22.4, it does identify how to approve a planned development district as well as the basis for modification. So amendments to planned development districts are outlined in 535.22.4I, which states that any change or addition to the original approved development plan shall require resubmittal and approval by the Plan Commission. And if such changes or additions are substantial in the opinion of the Plan Commission, such plan as modified shall be considered as an original application, and the requirements for the same shall govern prior to final approval of such modifications. So as I've indicated, the Plan Commission's first consideration is to decide whether or not the proposed changes that I briefly outlined to the site and building are substantial. And if determined not substantial, the Plan Commission will review the proposed modifications to ensure that the original findings as required in 535.22A of the approval remain fulfilled. I won't read all 9 of the requirements, but they are provided with you for reviewing your packet. So what I'm asking first is the Plan Commission to determine whether or not the removal of the garage and the addition of the apparatus bay, as well as the pedestrianized alley between the two buildings with the south side entrance, are in fact substantial enough to change the original intent of the village complex. It is my opinion that they are not substantial enough. The use is staying the same, the general square footage is staying the same. It's just a matter of, there's modifications to the site plan that would need to be amended to the original development plan. So currently on file in my department, along with the resolution and the ordinances, are the two plans on page 6 looks like 39 is the original site survey, and then page 40 is the modified village library. I would just be adding a third amendment to the original approval showing the new site plan for the fire station, which is also included in your packet for review. And we do have the architect as well as Chief Whitaker here if there's any questions regarding the scope of the improvements. But the plan commission's determination is to determine whether or not the changes are substantial, and if not, if they still comply with the intent of the original approval.
Or would it be, oh,
My
sorry.
question.
Go ahead, President Rutherford.
This brings actually to an information, thank you for your memo a long time ago. Could you just tell me if I am correct in saying this? Before us is the CSM and zoning change?
The first item is the Plan Development District Amendment. The CSM is after this item.
Okay, so so basically right now we're deciding zoning, and then the next is to decide ownership. Correct?
The CSM doesn't necessarily discuss ownership, it discusses parcel boundaries.
Okay, that's what I mean. Okay, so what I don't understand is when we do a land sale and we were in government, we get appraisals based on zoning. And this is a fire station. If it was part of our plan development, which is the village, we weren't selling it, then I would say a plan development amendment is absolutely correct. Because we still own it, it's part of our village center, it's all one development by one, entity, and that makes sense. But, as I said, we got appraisals for this property, an offer to purchase based on the appraisals, and the appraisals were based, the price was close to institutional. So if we were going to resell this property, I have no idea why we're selling it CBD. It should be institutional, which is why we sold it for a lower price. That means that in the future, it's very clear that it is a government institutional use. And we sell it. But to make it part of the plan development zoning, that's like if Metro Market sold, off something to a different owner, and it was supposed to be into the news. I just don't understand.
I guess my response to that is the building is currently zoned Plan Development District, so they're seeking an amendment just to allow for these minor modifications. They could have sought in a different amendment, but this is what was applied for, and I think from an administrative standpoint is doable for my departments.
I understand that, but I brought up this objection way before, because like at the beginning when we were talking about land sale, I said if we're going to sell this as institutional property, we're going to zone it for institutional. That's the price. If we're going to zone it, keep it PDD, then we sell it for a PDD price. That's land sale.
And I guess, so the Plan Development District does include the uses, so all the uses within the village complex are institutional uses, so it has the same use intent. It's just more flexible in terms of development, whereas an institutional zone would have specific setbacks.
I mean, they have a whole second, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but they have a whole second floor they're not using. Who says it's not going to become mixed use? I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm just saying, when you execute a land sale in conjunction with a zoning change and CSM, do it the right way. I get it's acceptable. I just think it's not the right thing to do.
If they were to use the property for any other purpose, they would also need to seek an amendment to the amendment that we're seeking here, at which point the Plan Commission would once again review whether or not that change is substantial. I would argue making that a mixed-use building or changing that would become substantial. In this case,
Why? The village center has different uses. I don't see it being substantial. I see it being income generating, which is fabulous.
Sorry. Hugo. I have a question. So I think, yes, there are not substantial changes to the exterior of the fire station. But is that our consideration, or are there substantial changes to the PDD? Because if I look at this, like an overhead photo of the village complex, that's, if I did the math, it's like 1/6 of the property being carved out. Just, I would think it's kind of substantial. So I'm just not sure as far as the PDD.
But they're not carving out of the PED, to be clear. It's still within the existing PED, so it's not being carved out in any manner.
Except as far as ownership goes, that's so.
I don't believe ownership is contemplated within the requirements of a planned development district. It could be owned by different parties.
Okay.
It's the use and the development plan that is what is approved with a planned development district. So the use of a fire station and the square footage and whatnot is what the zoning oversees.
So it doesn't matter that previously the entire property was owned by the village and now 1/6 of it's going to be owned by another entity?
Not in my opinion, it doesn't, I don't think legally.
No, except for the land sale. It doesn't matter who owns it, it's just the fact that this, what is known as, dictates value. I also want to know, is there a facade easement about that?
I'm sorry.
The facade easement would not be reviewed by the plan commission, that would be a village board.
I understand, but that's the other thing I asked for, is even though we don't have to approve it, I wanted it done before, these are the only two things that we approved. Is the zoning and the CSM, and if we don't have the facade easement in place or even see a draft of it, then I don't want to approve the zoning yet. I don't understand.
President Rose, this is Rebecca. With respect to the zoning is actually an item that we covered earlier on in the process. And while I know that you have concern over the financial sale of the property, for purposes of the Plan Commission, it's in the staff's opinion that the Plan Development District actually provides for more control over in terms of use and aesthetic changes to the property moving forward. Given the way that our code of ordinance is set up.
Institutional?
Yes. Which is why it was reviewed earlier in this process and also recommended to come forward in this manner. We've documented that from some time and legal counsel has.
I don't agree with it.
Correct, and I understand that, but I'm just relaying for the rest of the commission why it has been the recommended process to move forward with at this point in time. With respect to the facade easement, I do understand that at the last village board meeting, you had requested to review that documentation. It is not within the purview of review and approval by the Plan Commission. It is a document that will be reviewed and approved by the village board. From my preliminary understanding of working with Attorney Nathan Bayer as well as with NSFD's legal counsel, Attorney Deneen, they are working on that document, have heard the comments of which the board shared at the last meeting to incorporate different elements of the facade in a way that would document that under the village board's review and control should any future changes occur with the building.
Do we, Plan Commission, review easements? We review changes of easements for Accenture when they had to document an easement on the CSM, correct? They documented on the CSM. Is the body specific in some fashion that we're not reviewing as Plan Commission?
The Plan Commission did not review the easements with the CSM, they reviewed the CSM which had a notation of existing easements in that case, so those were included within the review simply as a matter of understanding what the existing easements in CSM were to be done, but if they were new easements, that would not have come to the Plan Commission.
I have a couple of questions on two of the maps. One map and the CSM. On the landscaping plan.
Okay, what's the page number, sorry Barbara?
It's the map, it's the landscape plan and it's A1.26.
Okay.
It was in the first portion of the documents. And I was wondering why the plan shows work being done, landscape work being done on property that will continue to be owned by the village of Shorewood, especially because the village already installed rain gardens where now mixed perennials are being put in. And is this just so that when all the work is done and the new alley and the front entrance, that it kind of looks like a continuous, nicely hearing area?
So I can answer briefly, and then the architect is here if he wants to as well,
Yeah.
but, so this area currently is a driveway, so people can drive through and around the building. With that being removed, and there'll be more of a pedestrian area here, the existing driveway at the end, at the eastern edge of Village Hall was essentially useless at that point, so it was just a matter of cleaning up the whole area while work was being performed.
Yeah, because, I mean, it looks like there's even work, like, you know, replacing the fronts, the concrete as we come into the entryway to the parking lot and, you know, doing some other landscaping. I know that's not under our purview to approve or disapprove. I was just really curious, you know, the extent of the work being shown when that's on village-owned property as opposed to the property being sold.
Yeah, I understand, that work is just being done to clean up the driveway that's back there presently, so it's not a leftover, you know.
Yeah, or it's like a dead end loss.
Correct.
Right.
Well,
And
we
then,
might not do that if we don't have money, correct, Rebecca?
The item is being bid as an alternate within the scope of the plans for the fire station when they do go to bid. While that's not, I mean, as you've identified, that landscaping item's not here for review or discussion this evening, but it is to provide a more aesthetically pleasing transition and really to eliminate a lot of pavement in an area that could otherwise be a bit more attractive moving forward, because we don't need it for the types of, you know, the police vehicles and other things of that nature.
all right, my second question has to do with this, the land survey itself. It looks like it showed 3 easements, 2 for utilities, so the village has access to those utilities should it need them.
Correct.
And then the proposed, the more important, the proposed access easement, which will run along the north facade of Village Hall.
Correct.
And I guess I'm just wondering, was it just so that we could have a really kind of linear, you know, nicely shaped rectangle that it's the way it is, you know, what? It seems like it's so close to Village Hall, you know, why isn't it a little closer to the fire station?
There's actually 3 reasons for the location being in there. One is functional of a straight line, because the building of the fire station curves. It has 3 different, you know, facade changes on the south. And so from a surveyor's perspective and having looked at other land splits before, it was advised we try to make a clean line. The reason why it's not very far away from the north side of the Village Hall is to facilitate that, but also to accommodate for a required building code requirement. So we will have, within that easement overall, it will be covering pedestrian access. A portion of that will be a non-buildable permanent easement to accommodate for appropriate setbacks from this building. There will also be a maintenance easement to allow a vehicle to enter into this landscaped area for purposes of accessing the mechanicals, which are actually the air handler, which is sort of the roof of this facility, and can only be accessed through the roof if it should ever require a large replacement. And then also to address anything on the exterior of the north side of Village Hall from the facade. If you also recall, we have the Shorewood Historical Society that has an office in the lower level of this building. They have an exit that goes into this alley. They're excited to see some of the transition because many people don't actually know that there is an entrance there. So it will give them a little bit more prominence. And then the general pedestrian user.
I just have a question about approving the PUD tonight and the easement. So without, like, if we approve the PUD tonight, or the amendment to the PUD, I guess what is the estimated time when we'll see the easement, and if there are concerns or challenges because the board's going to approve the facade easement, correct?
Correct. I'd be happy to review the timeline with you.
Okay.
If that would be helpful.
Yeah.
So,
But the second part too, if there's objection, like we don't like the design or something, and it's not consistent with the studies, then what do you have to do with PDD if it's approved?
Yeah, that was sort of my question, is if we approve tonight and then it gets to the board and the board does not approve the easement, what happens then if we get to
that point, was kind of my next question.
What do you want to PDD?
Yeah, so the PDD, once again, what we're approving is, or reviewing for approval is the development plan, which shows the garage being removed, the addition of the apparatus, as well as the changes to the alley becoming pedestrianized, as well as the vehicular traffic. So those are the three concepts that would be replaced with the current plan, which shows a garage and a driveway, essentially. So as long as the parameters of that stays the same, the details of how, what bushes are here or there, that would be not a plan commission decision. The plan commission reviews the development plan, which shows the pedestrianized alley, the removal of the garage, and then the addition of the apparatus. So those are the three things that I'd be asking for to be, included within the revised development plan. So as long as that remains the same with whatever finalized plan gets approved by the board, it would not need to come back here. If for some reason, the garage stays or something else happens, then the plan commission would need to reattach a different plan to it, but my understanding is this is pretty solid in terms of what we're looking for, which is why it's coming to you tonight, because this is what is being applied for, so.
But can I ask a question for PDD? The reason, those are pretty new zoning codes, it's pretty new zoning code, designation or whatever, category. And when they came about, my understanding was it was so, it was granted a lot of flexibility. It was the opposite of what the memo said. So let me tell you what my understanding was with downtown Milwaukee. The PDD came about because we needed, zoning codes were very rigid, and we needed to have better floor area ratio, setback, all that has changed over time. Our thinking about it is there, and architects. And so we wanted to have a flexible zoning code category that would allow, not have to go and change out the zoning code, because they're pretty much well done with it. So they created it. So instead of more stringent, which I know you can take it that way, it's going to be more flexible. And more stringent is when you actually incorporate the design elements. Like if you put the facade in there, if you put the more the better, because plan development then has to conform to that specific standard. And zoning, I want to say design, I don't know if that's the right word, but the more the better. That becomes more stringent. But if you want to have flexibility, if you both for aeration and height, things like that, then you would have less in there. So you can define what you want it to be. I want it to be able to have 7 stories. I want it to be able to do these kind of businesses, and it becomes, whatever you want. I don't see a fire station being a PDD. It's an institutional zoning category. It's very cut and dry. Fire station. And institutional land has a lower value than a PDD, which is usually mixed-use office towers or bigger complexes. But so the fact that we left with this against my objection, and that it tied it to a land sale, and then above all of that, we don't have design standards in there. I'm really not sure how to fix it to become more stringent.
Well, the current PDD that encompasses this whole village complex was approved in 2001. So whether we think that is a good idea now isn't that kind of a moot point? I mean, it is what it is.
We're changing. A PDD, we're either amending it or we're changing it right before the land sale. You're messing with the zoning. We can change it to institutional because it's a separate parcel that's owned by a separate entity and one use. A PDD, just, we're doing zoning right now, so it could have came before us tonight as institutional. We're going to institutional. With the new CSM, with the parcel line.
So
and then the deciding, all three came together, that makes total sense.
So President Rosa, you're saying that an alternative would be to remove the parcel the fire station is on from the PDD and have it zoned differently?
Yeah, so you create a CSM which draws the parcel boundary, so we're separating it from village center. It's not part of village center. We're creating new CSM. And then you put your facade easement to control the design, and you put the zoning to control the use. And all three of those go together, and you have, a land sale right after. But to keep it on the village, it's just not ours anymore. It's your fire department. It's not part of the village center complex.
here's another question I have. Is these two votes that we're being asked to do, are these just recommendations from the plan commission to the board, and then the board can either also approve
No.
them, or they can change their mind? Or is our decision final?
So the plan development, so this is not an application to rezone, it's an application to amend the existing zone. So within our zoning code, it allows the plan commission to do that by themselves if it determines that the changes are not substantial.
And then if it goes to the board and the majority of the board thinks the way that President Rozak does that, no, this is not the best thing, do they have an opportunity to change what we decided?
The board, back in 2001, the board already designated this as a planned development district, subject to the conditions of the development plan that were there. The current zoning code allows the plan commission to approve non-substantial changes to that district. So the board would not see this, would not see your approval.
They are moving the board by doing an amendment rather than a zoning change.
I guess I'm just wondering, who is the final word? You know, are we just making a recommendation to the board, or are we making the final decision?
On the CSM, you're making a recommendation to the board, so the board will approve the CSM separately.
Right.
On the planned development district, the plan commission is determining whether or not the proposed change is substantial, and if not, your decision would be final.
Hey, can I just say one other thing? When we went through the land sale, I don't think you can argue that PDD has less of a value than institutional. And so when we did our land sale price, we priced it based on institutional. And at that time, which was how long ago? 8 months, 9 months? You know, I had said, if we zone it institutional, we rezone it institutional, go to the weather, I would go ahead and agree to this price. But now you're asking the plan commission to zone it, keep it as a PDD, and we already set the land price. It's just not right, and the two go together.
But if we approve it, this change to the PDD, that's not going to affect the sale price, is it? I mean, you've already
No,
got it.
that's zone PDD, it's not zone institutional, it has different value in the separate code.
No, so are you thinking about future tax revenue? I mean, because this is a nonprofit entity it's being sold to. So I'm just wondering, it doesn't really affect the sale contract that the village has with the North Shore Fire Department, does it?
Okay, so the property is going
Okay, follow.
to PDD has the ability to come back and modify the PDD and put in a for-profit in the second floor. Not they're going to do that. I'm just saying that all of this has already been discussed during land sale. And that brings an additional value to that property. So when you decide on the land price, you look at assessments based on the zoning. And because there is potential to have additional revenue and value, the price of the land would change.
If I could just, before they'd be able to add any additional use or any additional development in there, the plan commission would need to re-review that as an additional amendment. And once again, if that amendment was substantial, that would be a whole new PDD that would go then to the board. So I just want to be clear.
Same building. I'm just saying, it's just not, you know, we're selling it off. We're selling it to the institutional land to use at the fire station. There was a plan out there talk out there about mixed-use development. It's not happening today, but if you're selling land, you take into consideration what the